Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream, episode 311. Today we're going to be working on basically doing shading for page 82 of Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which is a historical fiction graphic novel that I'm working on for Turner Publishing. And we should just be having a chill art stream today, so no spice. I do have a couple things I want to talk about, but we'll get into that in a second. So strap in and prepare yourselves, and let's get into the stream. Okay, so I'm going to go to my daily stream over here, and we got Gary Hodges saying, Joahus Crumble returns. Yes, Joahus Crumble. That's right. I forgot about the Joahus thing from Christopher Runsman's stream. All right, so I've basically got pencils for page 82, and now we're just working on shading, and then hopefully during this stream, my goal is to just finish shading the page, and then after that, we might kind of go ahead and continue and see where we can get. I just realized this is not showing my hand. That should be showing my hand. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get going. I got a message regarding the kind of spicy Trump stream that I'm kind of curious. Like, it was like a text exchange. I don't want to go through all the details of it, but the gist of it is interesting to me, and I kind of want to talk about it. So we'll be talking about that, and then working on shading this page. So for those of you who don't know, like a couple episodes back, I did a full review of the Trump indictment, the third indictment of Donald Trump, and I went through it. And as I was going through it, a friend of the show, a friend of in our kind of circle, came in, sort of instantly got personal with it, saying, "So what, you're saying I'm in a cult?" Because I was saying my theory about like people who at this point are still bought into Trump, that yeah, they're probably in a cult. And this person I didn't even really know was a massive like supporter or anything like that of the orange dude. But anyhow, so I do know they're kind of right leaning and stuff like that. But in all fairness, because I had made the statement, I was like, yeah, I mean, I probably think you're in a cult. And I was saying, but you probably think that I'm in a cult, to be fair. Like, I mean, that's kind of the way it works with this stuff, right? And then about like, and we were trying to kind of continue with the review. Again, I was pretty public and open about the fact that, hey, I'm going to get political on this stream. So we kind of continued with it. And then they proceeded to, hey, how's it going, Christopher? He said, the Kremlin, a tour. That's right. So they proceeded to on this chat after that exchange. Even though again, I was like fair about it. I was like, yeah, I mean, I think people who are supporting this guy are in a cult. But to be fair, you probably think the same of me. They proceeded to kind of say that I was entitled, that I grew up like that I had grown up like in like an entitled scenario where like I had no idea what living in a rough neighborhood was like or anything like that. And they were making a lot of implications like this, like nonstop in the chats. So I addressed them on it because I happen to know this person who was making these claims probably grew up wealthier than I did. Um, and so I was just finding it a little rich that they're like making this accusation. Not only that, but like, what does that have to do with anything of somebody's political viewpoint? Assuming that I didn't grow up the way I did, because I grew up pretty poor, but assuming, let's just pretend I didn't. What does that have any bearing on, uh, on whether you're right or not? But anyhow, so I responded in kind and was like, well, I mean, you're saying I didn't grow up hard, but like I happen to know that you grew up better than I did. Where are you from? And I kind of got, pretty openly like hostile with somebody who was being hostile in my chats. So um now where I come from, Christopher said, who said that? I'm in a mood. I will walk to California right now. Well, no, and that's the thing. Like, I don't mind free exchange in my chats. Like, and I don't mind people having differing viewpoints. What I do find weird is when people want to rattle off whatever they want to say in, my chat room and then expect me to not respond to it. That seems a little weird. So, anyhow, so what ended up happening is like after that little exchange, you know, uh, that person got really pissed off again, like, didn't want to like sit through the entire Trump, like was denying that Trump had done like a nefarious kind of quid pro quo to Georgia. So we went through the entire Georgia phone call. And by the time it was done, the person had rage quit chat. Now here's the thing that's weird to me. Is to me that doesn't seem like an unfair exchange. Like if I go on to somebody's YouTube channel and I start rattling off in their chats, stuff, and it's political at first, then I would expect a political response, right? Like, I mean, that's just kind of that makes perfect sense. If I start getting personal with somebody, I shouldn't be shocked if they start getting personal in response. And so that's kind of what happened. Like they started by expressing a political opinion. I responded by saying, basically, my own political opinion, and I made sure to counter it and be fair and measured with it. I was like, hey, to be fair though, you probably think I'm in a cult too. So it started kind of unpersonal and very political. And then it turned personal the second the person started making accusations about how I'd grown up or like personal statements about me. Christopher said, if I know them, tell me in a DM and I will block them outright. No, because like here's the thing. I actually like this person. I have no problem with this person. I think that they took it to a personal level and weren't quite prepared to have it brought back to them that way. And where I'm from, it's like a weird thing, but it's like I'm not a big fighter. I'm not a big fan of fighting. But I tend to think like if somebody comes in throwing punches, you shouldn't be surprised if someone punches back. Like that to me just seems like common civility, right? Like where it's like if you're gonna, like, for instance, if I were gonna agree to debate somebody or something and everything's going swimmingly and then I make like a really big personal cut, I would expect the response is going to be like personal, right? Like if you go personal, don't be surprised when people come back personal. So anyhow, needless to say, that whole exchange happened, and I just got a message from that person's, like, on YouTube, bigger friend. So it's like the little it's it's like the little guy came into my chats, not little, but I'm just saying, like, a person with smaller following came into my chats talking a bunch of crap, and I responded. And I responded, to be honest, by talking a little bit of crap, because they didn't know where they were coming from, and they didn't know a lot about who they were insulting at that time. Because, like, again, I didn't grow up in some, like, entitled scenario. Um, I grew up pretty poor, so it's like it just the accusation of that is just so ridiculous. Christopher said, "I'm not in a cult, but I'm in a culture club." Nice, that's true. That's probably how I should have responded. Is just saying, "Do you really want to hurt me?" Anyhow, so I get a text now from, like, a guy in that circle who has a much bigger YouTube following, who's friends with that guy. And he's basically saying, "Hey, you were beating up on my friend for an hour on a stream." And I'm like, no, like, there's a couple things that are wrong with that. One is, I wasn't doing the stream about your friend. I was doing the stream to review the third Trump indictment, and I was sharing my opinion of that. And then your friend got really mad at my opinion and expressed a counter opinion, which I countered. And then they went below the belt and got personal. And so, to be honest, maybe I shouldn't have gone tit for tat, but I was like, okay, if we're getting in the mud, let's get in the mud. So now this friend is, like, messaging me, and wouldn't hear any of it. Was like, no, 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 this is how it went down. And they kind of recounted it totally inaccurately, and we're like, well, you're just a jerk. And I'm like, okay, to me, and this is what I think I want to make as the content for this thing. And let me know if that makes any sense, because I'm trying to recap this in a coherent way. To me, where I come from, maybe I'm crazy, but, like, if you come in talking crap, don't be surprised when people talk back. Like, that's just the way, that's, to me, that's like the rules of engagement. It's like you set the tone for how you're going to be treated. And if you're like coming to, like, my YouTube channel just to, like, stir up some stuff, and then stuff gets stirred up, don't be mad that it got stirred up. Like, that's literally what you were starting. Christopher said, "I say we set the Friends neighborhood on." Oh, wait, they indicted Trump. No, so, like, I don't want to, like, create, like, some kind of hate mob or anything. And, like, again, like, the funny thing is, the guy messaging me has a much bigger YouTube platform, and it was just so bizarre, because it's like it it's bizarre, because then I'm basically being told that, so this touches on something that annoys me, that I've seen, with some people, not all people, but some people. When did it become okay to, like, walk around, like, punching people? Or, like, in this case, even the text message that I got started with just, like, a blatantly rude accusation, and some insults. And so when I responded, suddenly, and my response was just kind of explaining it, and they cut me off from explaining the situation. I just was like, okay, well, you clearly have your view. And then that person got personal. And again, I got personal in response. It, and then they were like, whoa, this is inappropriate. And I have screenshots of this too, just in case, because, like, with this particular person, I don't know, maybe it'll end up on a stream or something. And I want to make sure I have receipts. So anyhow, the thing that irritates me about this is, when did it become okay to like go up to someone, punch them, and then when they punch back, be like, "Oh, this person punched me." That's the part that's bizarre to me about this whole scenario. It's both people where it's like, um, where it's like both parties in this instance came in swinging, and then when you punch back, they're like, "How dare you? How dare you throw a punch?" And I even responded to this guy saying, "Well, what would you have me do? Do you think I should just have like not responded and let him just shit stir in my chats? Like, and just throw out all sorts of accusations and stuff?" And this isn't the first time I've experienced this. This is like the third time I've experienced this with people, where I'm like, am I crazy in thinking that, you know, to me, like a fair fight is if somebody hits, you hit back. I mean, like that to me is the epitome of a fair fight. I'm not saying you should hit back, and maybe I was in the wrong to, kind of respond, but it's one of those weird scenarios of like, what planet do we live in where people can just like run around like, you know, basically like bullying people, and then when they get called out on it, do the cry bully thing. Like it bugs me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the definition of like a cry bully. But a cry bully is like a person who just like goes around swinging punches and then gets all mad that they get hit. And it's like, that's the thing that's bizarre about this. In none of these occasions was I throwing the first punch. At first, I was just literally expressing a political viewpoint, which I know there are people in my audience that have a different view, and that's fine. And they were the person who took it super personally and started making personally charged comments. And then apparently they were really mad that, that I came back and actually responded. Christopher said, last August, I would have told you about punching, but I was trying to find out about punch. He said, they put one of yours in the hospital. You put one of theirs in the orange. Nice. Gary said, sorry, I'm slow on the replies. I'm making Trump collage as a show of support. Just wait till he sees the glued macaroni. Yeah, so like it was just, I don't know. To me, like that's the part that I'm kind of baffled by, is like, in what world do people think they can just blatantly make a personal attack and not have a person respond to it? And then when you respond to it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a jerk." It's like, no, I'm responding to your action, dude. And the weird thing is, both of these people are artists that I really respect. I actually like their art. I actually like their content. And so it's like, it's a weird thing. And I was even clear about that during that whole conflict, where I was like, hey, I like your content. I'll even promote your content. Like if you want to even mention your content, on here, I'll promote it because it's good stuff. Like, you make good art. But even then, like, that person was like refusing to like go above the belt. They wanted to stay below and stay in like a petty little fist fight. And it's like, okay, so at no point did they accept any sort of attempt for like peace, any sort of attempt for an explanation. They were just, being yeah. Gary said, I do want to know these people were not saying anything, but just for informed consent. Nice. So anyhow, that was just like a weird kind of scenario. But like the one thing I wanted to do, Christopher said, my world is being blown wide open here. Wide open like Creed. But anyhow, like, I guess what I'm getting at, and by the way, while I'm talking about this, we're shading a Victorian historical fiction graphic novel. I thought it might make for an interesting discussion in chat of like, have you guys ever experienced, the joys of the cry bully? Like somebody who literally, you know, comes at you attacking, and then the second you respond, they're like, "How dare you! You're so rude! Like you're so mean!" And you're like, I mean, it's like somebody who comes up to you and is like, "Hey, your mom," and then maybe you make a joke back, and they're like, "How dare you! How dare you, sir?" And you're like, "But you did a your mom joke. Like, what do you? You set the tone." Oh, I don't know. It's anyhow. So like this happened like a minute or so before I started streaming, And again, like the person who's texting me this has like a huge YouTube channel, you know? Um so it's not like these are like, nobodies or anything. And even if they were, I don't know. It just seems like if I went on to like Christopher Runciman's chats and who's a friend of the show, right? And I'm friends with him, and I think we have a mutual respect for each other's work. And I just started making all sorts of like, not like jokes or anything like that, but like personal accusations about like how Christopher grew up, like where Christopher's from, like basically anything Christopher said, I start responding as if it were a personal attack, even though he's just talking about like an opinion. Like, let's say Christopher was saying something about like an artist that he particularly doesn't like, but he's kind of like hedging it with like, yeah, but some people like him, some people don't. I personally don't. Here's why. And I suddenly just go on the attack, start hitting low below the belt, and then Christopher responds while he's streaming, like by maybe like doing a counter punch, like reading the comment and then either addressing it or like countering it. If I was just suddenly like, "Oh my gosh! Oh no! How dare you!" It just seems like such a lame thing. Bozo the Clown said boring. I'm guessing that might be somebody trolling. That's my own guess. Christopher said, "I am sick and tired of people pushing Nickelback on me." Yeah. So anyhow, I don't know. Like to me, that just seems like totally stupid. Like the idea of, like, I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna stir the pot, like you shouldn't be surprised like when something comes out, And I think people who know me will know I don't tend to go out of my way to just attack people, but I also am very stubborn and I will defend people and I will defend myself, and I will counterattack for sure. It's just kind of in my nature. I feel like that's kind of the rules of the game, like as far as I'm concerned. And maybe that's not the best, like I guess I could probably turn the other cheek. That's probably a weakness of mine as a human being, is not just turning the other cheek, but that's something I've always been pretty bad at. But at the same time, I feel like it just seems it kind of reminds me of the whole Ukraine situation where people are like, well, they should have just let Russia like take, Ukraine. And it's like, if you're a Ukrainian, like what, you're just supposed to like take the hit and be like, yeah, just come on over, kill all our people, take over our government. Like, it's just a weird, like, when did we end up in a world where like people are supposed to just like roll over and take it if they get hit? Like, I mean, I get from like a Christian perspective why that would be good to do as an individual, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like like, has this always existed? Like the crybully phenomenon? You know, I don't know. Thomas said, some people can really lose all sense when hidden behind a screen and keyboard. Yeah, that's true. And then Gary said, I've had similar experiences. Some people act really shocked when you don't let them slide. That's the thing that I'm saying. Like, it again, like, I should probably let people slide more, but like, again, like, to both these people, it's like you guys started the insults. Like, I was literally just expressing a viewpoint on politics, nothing to do with you. And you took it personal and went to a real personal place. And then we're mad that I responded personally. It's just, it's the epitome of what I don't know. I see this all the time. I see it a lot in politics, but it's unfortunate to see that within my own kind of circle of artists that tend to get along even if we disagree. But I've had this happen multiple times. There was let's see here. Christopher said, when people talk smack, I tell people that I have a very specific set of skill. Nice. Nice. Gary also said, I have similar experience. Okay, we got that. Christopher said, you know how I've invited people to join my stream lately, but you have to have a camera on you or your work because I don't do talking logos. I got a DM from that. Nice. I think it's reasonable to want people to show themselves. Yeah, for sure. I've had a few people on my channel that don't use, their own video, but I'm swaying less and less in that territory. Because I do think it helps to have somebody actually have a dog in the fight. But yeah, so like, yeah, Gary said talking logos are weird and off-putting. Yeah, and you do kind of wonder, right? I think that I don't know why. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay, but we're good. Nice. Christopher said I bounced them from all social media. Simple answer. Yeah. The thing that's like sad about this is and the thing that's bizarre is I don't even think these people are aware of what they're doing. Like, I don't think they're aware that they came in punching. Because I've seen this with multiple people. There was somebody who used to come to my streams a lot and participate in chats all the time. And basically anything I would say, even if it wasn't a political stream, they would get like political or subtly political with their opposing viewpoint. And that's fine. But I remember one or two times actually replying to their little political comment, in my chats and just replying to it, not like saying anything rude, anything, personal about the person. I was just countering what they were saying and somewhat spamming at that point in my chats. And that person just rage quit and was like, "You're so mean." And I'm like, "What world do you live?" Like, I don't understand. Like, do people I guess I'm baffled by this. Like, do these people just walk into a cafe and they just start talking about their political candidate and just going for like hours and hours and hours, and finally somebody responds and in the cafe and they're like, "How dare you, sir? How dare you mention politics in this restaurant?" And you're like, "You've been doing this the whole time." Like, that's the frustration of the cry bully. And I think it works sometimes. Because I think the optics of being like, "Oh, like being the first to cry about it, the optics of it can give you a win, even though you were the person who initiated it." It's really bizarre. Yeah, so I feel bad about just going off about cry bullies, but that's what's on my mind right now. Where I'm just like, did something happen here? Did something happen with, I don't know. Is it like a logic Gap or something like that. It's so crazy. Anyhow, I was telling I don't know. I just think it's weird. Cuz like to me in my mind, if I'm going to like go like again, if I were going on, Christopher's stream or something and I'm in the chats and I start just vehemently disagreeing with him and getting real personally offended by everything he says and start making personal attacks, I should expect that Christopher is going to respond to that, like by either banning me or responding to it. I shouldn't get all mad because, like, how dare you respond to me insulting you in your own chat room? It's, I don't know. It was an interesting one. Thomas said, just to let you know, I was so offended that you made fun of me for not liking Reese's. Well, to be fair, sir, Reese's are amazing. Yeah, anyhow, I don't know. I feel like people have just lost their maybe I'm crazy, but I think a lot of people have lost their intellectual fortitude. Like I think there's an ability that some people have, and maybe I just made the mistake of assuming that these people have this ability to intellectually disagree without taking it personally, you know? And I mean, I don't know. Anyhow, so that was an interesting thing that happened today. It is like a million degrees. We have our AC blasting and it's still like a million degrees in the house. I don't know how Gary is even surviving right now because we have a pretty decent AC too, and it's just like barely. I mean, to me right now, it just feels like death in this house. Like it is so hot. Guys out there faring in this crazy heat. So I'm trying to kind of establish there's like a loose light source behind these figures. Christopher said, we have a spare bedroom. We have snow there. You're going to have like a family of 5 people come crash at your place, Christopher. We'll just fly back and forth. Like when we get sick of the snow, just return back. Oh, Christopher was saying not right now, but we do get it. Okay. Snow sounds amazing right now. Thomas said, it's cool here in Las Vegas, only 98 degrees, break out the parkas. Yeah, I kind of envy that because I think right now, I can't say for sure, but I think it's got to be in the 100, triple digits for sure. We've been getting like in the 110s. I don't know where it's at today, but it's been in the 110s. Yeah, Gary said, I think it's a reasonable 103. Gary said, it's just thin skin. They, like a lot of us, spend 99% of their time talking to like minded people and making scarecrows of the opposition and just can't cope with an actual contradiction. Yeah, I think that might be it. That might be it. Because even in the message that I got, when I was just kind of explaining what happened, they just clearly, like, they cut me off before I could even explain. And it's like, okay, well, you have your viewpoint that you want to believe before we even started this conversation. So, yeah. So, like, you've already made up your mind. Like, what's the purpose here other than just venting or getting pissed? But it's interesting to me too because there's like this myth of like or maybe it's not a myth. Maybe there are a lot of people who are really fragile on the left, but from my experience so far, it's like if I make a critique of people on the left, like they still follow my channel, they'll still buy my art. Um, it, it this weird thing seems to happen whenever I make a critique of people on the right, and this isn't all people on the right, because I know for a fact there's people who listen to this that still, buy my stuff and still hang out on the streams and stuff who are right leaning. But I'm just noticed that the people who are doing all this rage quitting and this just like hard copium, they're like they're usually on the right, and it's a little shocking because it's like I thought I was supposed to be the fragile liberal. I thought I was supposed to be the fragile, little snowflake or whatever. um it's interesting. I have a new Jim Lujan uh cartoon to show today. Brand new. I don't think anyone's seen it. I'm really excited about it. It was just a total surprise. Mr. Lujan did a new. Christopher said, "That's it. I'm stepping away." Yeah, Gary said, "I think fragility is almost innate with radicals of any stripe." And that's the thing. It's not like I'm some tough guy. Like, I'm not like a fighter. Like, I'm not a physical dude. Like, I didn't even start exercising until like my late 30s and early 40s. I mean, I am not a specimen to be getting in like fist fights, but I have been in fights. Like, I didn't want to be in the fights. Um, but like I'm not a fighter. Like, but I'm also I don't know. I'm not like a pushover in the sense that I don't tend to like deal well with people talking crap, especially if they're trying to intellectually make a point. Because I'm like, oh, that's my fight. Like, that's my fighting. You know, I can get in that arena. Um, but yeah, like I'm not like this tough, dude. But yeah, I mean, like the mental fragility of some of these people is shocking to me. But anyhow, whatever. Um, Nice. Christopher said he's getting dinner out of the oven. Nice. So anyhow, I have a new Jim Lujan cartoon to show you guys. Jim surprised me late last night and sent me another commercial for Jacob's Apartment in 2 Stories. Another animated, amazing promotion. And I was just flattered because, again, like, Jim's such a good dude. And just to do that without even being asked to is just like one of the sweetest things on the planet. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. We'll be watching that at about the hour mark. I'm pretty excited about. So it's brand new Jim Lujan stuff. Yeah, Gary was saying, "Wow, I can't wait to see this." Yeah, neither can I. Well, I mean, I saw it once. I've watched it once before this and was stunned at how rad it is. Um, but I'm really excited to share it with you guys, and that'll be my second time viewing it, and I just can't wait to see it again because it's pretty great. Um, and it has a lot of Luhan humor to it too. So, um, for any of you guys who might want to jump in on this advertisement train too, all you have to do is film a under 1 minute video where you talk about either Jacob's Apartment or 2 Stories or both. And you can mention your own products, your own site, that kind of stuff. And as long as it's under like a minute or a minute and 30, it'll get put into the rotation of commercials that I play quite often during the stream. And it'll act as advertisement for my books and hopefully promoting your stuff as well. So it's like a win-win. So if you ever want to do that, yeah, you can just message me, your video, and I'll add it to the gauntlet. Okay, I think this is where I want to go. Yep. So here we're going to just erase out these areas that are coming through here. I need to turn down the opacity just so I can see the difference here. I also think there's some people who like this always confuses me a little bit. Because I tend to be a person who I like hearing things that I don't know or agree with because I like kind of being informed, and sometimes if I'm wrong, I kind of want to know it. Um and so I'm kind of okay and comfortable with if somebody has a differing viewpoint. I mean, I'm pretty headstrong with my opinions, but strangely enough, like I'm kind of okay with being wrong. Like I can kind of admit to being wrong. And sometimes I'm actually the better for it. Like when I've had times in my life where I've been wrong and proven wrong, it's actually been really educational for me. Like it's helped me out in life. But I think there is like a level of cognitive dissonance, and maybe I have it too. Where people like want to be able to just like make up their mind, and then that's it. The mind's made up. That's it. It's nice, easy, doesn't require a lot of thought. and and then therefore you can kind of keep your own like kind of comfort in your identity. Christopher said, Gary, someone asked me how I could be a Christian if I have a book by Christopher Hitchens. I've had people, because Jacob's Apartment has a main character that's an atheist, just assume that I'm an atheist. Um, because like I'm a writer that wrote a character that was an atheist. Very bizarre. Um, because writers can't write characters that they may not fully philosophically agree with. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this about Gary Hodges, but like every character in D versus M is exactly his philosophical outlook in life. Um, because all writers are literally writing only their own viewpoint and only characters that completely agree with them. Christopher too. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but his one page comics, they're all characters that are in agreement. If the two characters in the one page story disagree, that's just the split personalities of Christopher himself, because no one ever invents things that they aren't, or explores ideas that they don't agree with, like a Christopher Hitchens book if you're a Christian. Landon said, Josh, what you doing? How's it going? Doing okay, Landon. How you doing, buddy? Uh let's see here. Yeah. Christopher was saying those dinosaurs have some problematic opinions, Gary. Gary was saying, yes, I use D versus M to express my exact thoughts and feelings exactly to the world. D versus M is basically my diary. Just wait until we get to puberty. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I expected like more mental fortitude from artists, Like I feel like artists, we should be I love that one. Christopher said I did a page called Point Counterpoint where I have politicians argue about beans. Oh, it's so great. I actually like that one a lot. My favorite one you've done so far, Christopher, is the letters versus numbers. That was just, I don't know, like a stroke of genius, the way that was executed. And you've done a lot of comics that do stuff that only comics can do, but that was one where you went in a direction I've never seen. At least I'm not familiar with anyone going in comics, and it was just so much fun, and it was readable. Like you could actually follow it, you know. So it was like this very abstract idea, pinned down very, very effectively. Christopher said, "You guys have already got to puberty. What in the what?" Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I just always think it's unfortunate when people want conflict. Um, they get it, and then they're mad that there's but it's like you asked for, like you, anyhow, whatever. So here we go. We've got I also know like there are some people who are just different than me, like in the sense that I might just be unusual in the fact that I enjoy conversing with people I disagree with. Like I actually don't mind it. I don't get super like hurt by it or anything like that. Okay, what do we have here? So this is a tough one where I want the lighting to actually be in the front of the figure, so I might have to kind of revise this just a little bit. Um, and I realize I've been doing this on a couple layers, so Christopher said he's glad somebody got that story. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm really digging this page, digging how it's coming out. I've been revising that script that I've been talking about. There's a writer that has sold quite a lot of books. He's going to be collaborating with me on a graphic novel, and we've got everything worked out. It seems like the we have like a written agreement before about the collaboration and ownership split. I can't get into any of the details of it, but it's like we're close. We're close to the point of being able to pitch it. So now what I'm doing, what I've been doing the last few days is going through a screenplay that was made for film and then adapting it for comics. And since it's going to be used as a pitch for a publisher, and since I'm going to be the illustrator, I'm getting way more specific with it, where I'm doing panel breakdowns within the script pages, so that we have an idea of what each page will be, like panel by panel. And that's to also help me out if we do end up getting the deal. Because as you guys can see with this book, when I'm doing the breakdowns from the script, that often is taking some of the productivity time from the art. Um, and I appreciate actually being able to do that when it's a script written by someone else, because that allows me the freedom artistically to kind of break down their page into what I think would work best. But when it's a script that I myself can write or revise, then in this case, like I would prefer to actually have all the breakdowns so that I can just go straight to thumbnails. So that's what I've been working on, but that's taking a really long time. I'm about maybe 20 pages into that. But I'm trying to kind of alternate a bunch of things like job applications, client queries, and then keeping this comic on deadline, um, and then getting that pitch ready. Just trying to keep a lot of irons in the fire so that hopefully, when the money dries up, I got somewhere to go. Christopher said, if this new book is about fistfights over recorded phone calls, we were going to have a problem. That is my idea that I came up with out of nowhere, and I will quit this conversation. I love it. So I think we're going to, anyhow, like it's a really good script. It's kind of cool. We're in like this, the part that I'm revising right now. The only problem is it's kind of very dialogue heavy. Which isn't a problem. I love stories that are dialogue heavy, but when you have dialogue heavy work and you're trying to kind of work out what the panel breaks are going to be, it can be a little challenging. There's also some action heavy parts, coming later in the section of the script. I really cannot wait to share with you guys who I'm collaborating with. Ironically, a lot of people on the right would know who this is. Because they're a pretty prominent Christian author, but they're not right leaning, but they're known in that circle. So let's see here. We're about an hour in. I'm pretty excited to share the new Jim Lujan. But first, let me finish this leg, and then I will share Jim Lujan's amazing new animation he made to play on breaks. If you guys aren't following Jim Lujan, I don't know, what are you guys doing, Christopher said, I have a new book pitch that's part of a story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but it's about the blue people that live in mushrooms in the forest. Interesting. I'm not familiar with Jonathan Livingston Seagull, actually. Is that the... You have to remind me. All right, so we have we've gotten most of this panel penciled. Let's go ahead and it's called the Strumps. Nice. All right, here is the trailer by Jim Lujan. Let me find it. And here is the brand new trailer.
You know, the Georgia kids say the craziest thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading 2 stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kemble. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism, and all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce, fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
All right, so tell me that is not one of the best Jim Lujan animations. I just thought it was amazing. The premise, like the thing that kills me about Jim is his mind is so good at coming up with like a really good scenario or premise. What a funny idea to have one of those old game shows that's like, oh, look at the silly things that children say, and then have it juxtaposed with like my work that's like super like serious and depressing. It's great. It was amazing, and extremely flattering. Thank you, Jim Lujan, for sending that in. That made my night. I was up late working on the pencils for this page, and then that just came in as like one of the best surprises that I've experienced. So thank you very much. Christopher says Lujan is the bomb. I love it. Yeah, I thought it was pretty amazing. So, okay, let's see here. So we're kind of like he's basically pushing this like suitcase. So in regards to the whole thing of like the text I got that was like doing the whole Crybully thing, the way I kind of ended it was basically saying like, look, like, you know, you guys are rad people, but if you're gonna walk around like punching people, don't be pissed if they punch back. Like, if you're running around swinging punches, you know, like, come on, what do you expect? Yeah. Anyhow, so we've got this going on. We've got our suitcase here. Pretty exciting times. And then again, today's like kind of a chill art stream, so whatever, you know, whatever you know, feel like working on, feel free to be working on your stuff. Speaking of, what are you guys working on? I'd love to hear it. You know what this whole text thing reminds me of? There was like, I can't remember what city this was in, but it was footage that came up online where I think it's in like Louisiana or something, somewhere in the South. There was a boat, like a pontoon boat, driven by like some white guys, parked into like it was like basically docked in an area that like that was already permitted for parking for like a tourist boat. And so the security guard working there goes up to like the pontoon people and is like, you know, basically like pointing out to them like, hey, your pontoon's like blocking the thing. And these guys are like instantly like, what's your problem? I'm not moving my pontoon and all this stuff. And so like they start escalating it, you know, even though, you know, to be fair, like the parking, like they need to just move their pontoon. So instead they escalate it and escalate it and escalate it. And finally, like, you know, the security guard kind of holds his own. And finally they come back and like sucker punch this, like they walk away like as if it's resolved. And then they end up coming back with like a crew of guys and sucker punch this captain or not captain, the security guard. And and then just have like 6 guys just beating the guy up. So then the guy kind of flags the other security in the area, and this entire group of people just come and like beat the crap out of these guys. And it starts like this just giant fight on the docks. And what this reminds me of is there's like a whole group of people who think that the security guard was in the wrong for basically getting his friends and like the community around him to like back him up. Like their kind of attitude was like, oh, this guy should have just taken it. It's like, but the police didn't see it that way. The police are arresting the guys who initiated the entire fight, right? Because they were illegally parked. The security guy was just doing his job, right? But it's one of those things of like, wouldn't it be weird if those guys, like, why would those guys expect no retaliation at all if they're gonna fight? Like that's the part that's bizarre to me, um because like, yeah, I don't know, I feel like there's a word for that. Anyhow, so we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. We're shading this page. This whole thing is going to take so long. I don't know why these comics things. Yeah, Paul said the security guard tossed his hat and it was on. Yeah, and justifiably, those guys got whooped. Like they got, but it was like it was kind of. I'm not even a fan of fighting, but it was somewhat cathartic to see, right? Because it's like, I mean, they were just just idly starting a fight they didn't need to start, And then when they got the repercussions, they were like, "Oh crap, what did I get into?" So I don't know. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Paul said, "Yeah, you're leaving out the whole race angle. It was in Alabama. Yeah, it was in Alabama, and it was very race related. But that's the part that was annoying. Is like it was a bunch of white dudes beating up a black guy, and then yeah, it just went down, and they found out. So I don't know. I feel like we're in a weird world where like people would think that that security guard should have just taken it and there should have been no recourse. Like that's bizarre to me. The idea that you'd live in that kind of world. But I feel like there's a lot of people who kind of expect that. They expect to just kind of sling arrows and then get mad when arrows come back their way. Christopher said, I'm working on one page for a few moments while Lori is at her folks. And I had an interesting 24 hours, so I get to do some art and chill. Nice. Yeah, I was up super late working on this. And I don't know how late Jim was up working on that promo, but it was rad to see. I will say all the political divisiveness, it does make me wonder if there's like guys at bars getting in fistfights over Nixon. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff that's like really old stuff, for like older people. Are they still getting in like knockdown, drag out wars over like differences of political opinions? Or has it been enough time to where somebody could actually express an opinion and be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. It's not my opinion. Gary said, I just read a Bertrand Russell quote that applies. Gary said, if an opinion contrary to your own makes you angry, that's a sign you are subconsciously aware of having no good reason for thinking as you do. Yep. The other problem is, and this is one of my things that I need to work on, is like if an opinion, like to me, any opinion kind of makes sense, but when the internal logic of the opinion doesn't even hold up, it's very frustrating. And that's something I need to work on, is being more patient with people when I feel like the internal logic of their argument just doesn't make sense. Because, like, there are good arguments for a lot of things that I vastly disagree with, but you could still make a good argument. Like, that's what I mean, is like you can disagree with an argument that's a very good argument. You know, a good argument doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It just means that the structure is coherent. There's like logical legs for the idea to stand on. And for me, like when people just totally disregard the logic, like they don't care about having legs to hold their argument, or they do gish galloping where they're kind of hopping all over the place, because again, like they can't kind of address the contradiction in like one of the points. That to me like gets me really triggered. And so like that for me is like really hard to not get mad at. You know, it's not like what they're arguing makes me mad. It's just the lack of ability to like slow down and like, you know, accept like something they said was BS. What's up? I have to. Why?
Because he keeps coming over while I'm working and saying, "Hold me."
The Chihuahua is apparently bugging my wife when I was working. She's working. You guys have seen this on stream. The Chihuahua has done this to me too.
Yeah.
He likes to snuggle
you
people.
Hold the Chihuahua for a couple hours for me.
I can hold it, Daddy. But she will get out.
I know, he comes over. It's only when I was coming.
Christopher Runciman said, next you are going to be have a problem with Kissinger not being kissable enough. Do you remember that there was a song called The Henry Kissinger by Monty Python, where it was Henry Kissinger, I'll be missing ya. Let's see here. Gary said the most savage controversies are those about matters which there is no good evidence either way. Nice. Persecution is used in theology, not in arithmetic, because in arithmetic there is knowledge, but in theology there is only opinion. Nice. Gary said, so whatever you find yourself getting angry about a difference of opinion, be on your guard. You will probably find an examination that your belief is going beyond where the evidence warrants. I love it. And then also Gary said, how dare you suggest Kissinger isn't kissable? Christopher Runciman said, smoochable, but not kissable. I don't know, guys. There's a lot of controversy going on with Theodore Roosevelt. You know what I'm saying? Gazbot said, spicy stream again, I see. It wasn't, this one didn't even start as a spicy stream. I'm just kind of working on art, and it was supposed to be a chill stream, but I am just trying to kind of figure out why people would be comfortable with like throwing insults and not getting insulted back. That's always weird to me. We were talking about Crybullies, basically, guys. And why Crybullies are kind of weird. Because it's like, wait a minute. If you start off swinging, you know, I don't understand why anybody would be like, why did you dare defend yourself and hit back? Like, come on. Come on, guys. Nice. Gary said, I've already ordered 10,000 plush Kissinger dolls for my Etsy shop. You guys, there's some hot takes going on about Henry Kissinger in the chats. Gaz said, I've never heard that term, but I know what you mean. It's kind of like the people who, you see it a lot in politics where it's like a politician will tell somebody that, let's see here, where somebody will tell a politician that, or a politician will tell a whole group of people that their way of life is like completely evil and awful and stuff like that. And then people respond, and the politician's like, hey, no need to get offended, you know? I don't know. Anyhow, whatever. I want a new topic. A new direction is where we need to go here. Oh, Gaz, is your show this weekend? I feel like that's supposed to be coming up pretty soon, right? Or is that next? I think it's next weekend, right? So right now we're just getting the shading done for this panel. We should be pretty far along. Okay, yeah, it's on the 19th, so it's next week. If you guys are in California, you should check that out. Christopher said, I don't mean to talk out of turn, but I read on the interwebs that most politicians are actually squirrels stacked up in human suits with rubber faces on the top squirrel. I kind of could buy that. Squirrel Gate. And like this sign, the symbol for this conspiracy theory, Chris, could be squirrels like looking at you stacked on a gate. And we could start calling it Squirrel Gate. Gaz said, and wigs. Nice. Japan World Heroes is I think the Christopher said, do you still dance when the song Funky Cold Medina comes on? I hate to say it, I don't know if I'm familiar with the song Funky Cold Medina. Also, man, there's some heated debate going on about squirrels versus chipmunks. All right, so we got this going. So at some point, Philip Chandler is going to have to talk to me about bread. I don't know how this is possible, but like the other day, I've been making bread with the bread maker, partially inspired by Philip's foray into like making homemade bread. And my last attempt at bread, it like proofed like the dough. I think it's proofing when it rises or whatever. Maybe that's not proofing. I don't know. Whatever term it is, it rose way too high and spilled out into the bread maker itself, like outside of the little container that it's in, and just started like spewing like smoke all throughout the house. And so I ended up like clearing it out and cleaning out the thing. And then we finished cooking the bread, and the bread got cooked, and it wasn't bad, but it was like a quarter of the loaf, because it's like it spat out half the loaf. And I'm like, I swear I followed the instructions, but maybe I'm just cursed at baking or something. I don't know. I thought I had followed the instructions to the T. So now I'm curious. It's too bad Philip's not in chat, but I want to hear from Philip if he has any nightmare bread maker stories, or if I am just unusually untalented at making bread with a bread maker, which is supposed to be almost like yeah, it's like as plug and play as you can get for baking, Yeah, Christopher said that sounds like a demonic possession situation. Yeah, it possibly might be, man. There was this strange thing when I was cleaning out the bread maker where it was like, yes, one of us. And I was like, what? And the bread, for some reason, had like a little face on it. Okay, Christopher, you have to write this down. I know this isn't your stream, but how about that? Like a baker bakes a demon loaf of bread, and it'll just be like a cute bread loaf with like a smiley face that just says crazy demonic stuff. But it's like an adorable little bread loaf. What do you think? I think that's a whole series. It could be called Demon Bread Loaf. There could be a band tied in with it that makes like death metal songs all about baking bread. What do you think? Yeah. Thomas was saying, partake in my evil carbs. Yeah. And then he could make a lot of bad bread puns. Where it could be like, you could call me really crummy. Ha 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 ha. Oh, I don't know. He'll be wheat bread, so he'll constantly be talking about the harvest, the harvest. Christopher said, did you see the adorable murderous ghost I did from your suggestion today? No, not yet. Oh my gosh. Have you posted it? Is it on stream? I saw like a little bit of your stream, but I don't know if I saw the whole thing. Now I want to see it, Christopher. Was that on your stream today? I'm gluten full. Oh, Christopher said it's on Instagram. Now I have to check it out. Okay, guys, we've finished 3 of these panels today. Why does shading take so long? Why does art take so long, guys? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save where we're at, and we're going to do another quick break, and then we will get back into it. It looks like I accidentally erased a line here that is kind of like a giveaway. So I'm just going to kind of cover it up a little bit. Okay. Gaz said, how many pages do you have left? About 110. Something like that, Gaz. I hate comics. Okay, here is the trailer for... You know what? We're going to play it one more time. We're going to play Jim Lujan's new trailer one more time because it's brand new. So why shouldn't we? Here it is.
You know, the Georgia kids say the craziest thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading two stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kemble. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism, and all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce, fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
Gaz said, nice new commercial. Yeah, Jim sent that to me yesterday as a surprise, and it was one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things. And it came on one of those days. I don't know if you guys have ever had those days where you'll like work on art and suddenly the art gets lost or something like that. This literally happened. Like I'm working on the script yesterday, and you know, there's a knock on the door, and I open it, and it's one of our neighbors who had hit one of our cars parked. And again, no big deal. Like, he's insured. He took ownership of it and stuff, but still. So that takes like hours out of the day. And like it's one of those days where like everything, I'd apply for jobs or something like that. Like the application thing would be like all messed up. Like I go to cook bread and the bread burns like and almost starts a fire in the house. It's like it was definitely one of those days, and I'm sure we've all had those days where it's like part of being an optimistic person is to not get into like list based thinking where you're like, that's another thing. But it was one of those days where it's like, okay, it's gonna start feeling like things are another thing piling up. And the comics taking forever, that kind of stuff. So I'm in a really down mood late last night because I'm like working on this thing. I'm up super late. I'm like only 82 pages into it. I need to be way further. And then I get that amazing animation from Jim Lujan, which was like a real boost to an otherwise like pretty difficult day. um and it wasn't a bad day. It's not like a bad day, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if people realize, like, sometimes those little acts of kindness go a long way and are very meaningful. So thank you for making my what wasn't a great day a good day, Jim. That was nice. So let's see here. We have a lot of this just kind of working away. I'm kind of excited. I'm excited. Gaz, I hope like some people checked out Horror A4. Gaz did a really good appearance on our last Artcasters. It was really fun. Good conversation. Gaz said, "Did you take your kid to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or plan to? I didn't even know there was a Turtles movie out. That's how out of touch I've become with life outside of this book. And now I'm revising a script too, so I've been in like extra like dug in like art creation zone." Gaz said it's pretty fun. Nice. Yeah, it'd be fun to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Uh, is it is it an animation? Is it a live action? My son's not like super into Ninja Turtles though. He's like really into like Among Us and Minecraft, and like he's really into Geometry Dash, like these other things. I think his favorite cartoon right now is Ninja Sheep, which is on Netflix. He likes Bread Barbershop a lot, which, by the way, Gaz, if you have not seen Bread Barbershop, it's good. It's really well done, and your kid might like it a lot. It's all about a loaf of bread who's like a barber in a Oh, Gary said it's 3D animation, similar to Spider Verse. That seems like the ultimate way to do Ninja Turtles. I haven't even seen the second Spider Verse. This is how like in a little dugout I've been. I think the first movie I'd seen in a long time was Oppenheimer. But yeah, maybe that might be a nice little break to do with Ben. Maybe as a reward once he gets back to school, because school's starting pretty soon. Maybe we could go to the movies. Yeah, Gary's been on a similar thing. He said, "No, I haven't seen the second one yet. Earlier, it came out when I was drawing 1979." I still, yeah. Gary said Oppenheimer and Barbie are both worth it. Nice. I have not yet seen Barbie. I wasn't even that interested in Barbie because it's like, I'm just like, I never had an interest in Barbie. Like my sisters were really into Barbies when I was growing up. But to me, just like the idea of like a Mattel property as a thing just sounded kind of boring. But then the more there's a lot of people that I don't agree with the opinion of who were just railing against Barbie. And then a lot of people that I do trust their opinion and were saying Barbie was actually a really good movie. Now I'm really curious to see Barbie, almost like in response, because I'm like, I wonder what got people so mad. People that I don't tend to, admire their opinions so mad about it. So now I'm really curious about it. Like I actually would like to see Barbie just to see what's the big deal. What triggered so many people. Um I felt like Oppenheimer was tastefully done. I like the fact that it didn't like romanticize or demonize the guy. It was just like a pretty is a pretty interesting take. I think an interesting portrait on kind of mind. And the thing I like about it is I think the movie did a good job of making the mind the real horror. Because there's tension throughout the whole thing. And it's not necessarily tension caused by what the mind creates. It's the mind that created it that becomes like this kind of looming, destructive, dangerous force of power. And, I don't know. To me, that was a cool angle that they kind of focused more on the mind of the creator of the thing. Gary said, Barbie is fun, smarter, and funnier than it needed to be, but triggering for some as it had a lot of progressive feminist takes. I thought it was fairly light, but people on the right would object. That's part of why I'm kind of curious to see it. Gary also said Ryan Gosling is hilarious as Ken. Nice. Thomas said, "Did you watch the Oppenheimer miniseries years ago? I was wondering how they compare." No, I didn't. I didn't even know there was one. So Is there a place I can watch that now? Because I would love to. I'd be interested in watching that. I was on a YouTube rabbit hole a little bit ago looking at the history of Israel, like the whole history of the state of Israel. It was really interesting. Kind of going through the different wars and feuds and things in that area, because there's a lot of people who like talk a lot of jargon and propaganda, you know, about that area that I felt like, you know, I don't need to know a ton, but I'd like to kind of check it out. And so I watched a whole bunch of history things on that, and that was really fascinating. Um, just to kind of see how like all the conflicts and stuff in that area like arose, and um, maybe I'm weird, but like it did seem like a lot of the history of that area is like people, again, like the Crybully thing, where it's like people poke and poke and poke and poke, and then like Israel will finally fight back, and people are like, "How dare they? How dare they?" I don't know. It seems like that is a lot of the history there. Not that it's always the history, because it seems like you know, some bad things. You know, no nation is perfect. You know, but it was surprising to me how much it is like, you know, like that, looking into the history, it's like some terrorists like hijack a plane, and there's like hundreds of Israeli citizens like being held captive, and they like do this special ops thing to like go into that area, like take out the terrorists, get their people free, fly them back with like one of the most covert operations ever done. And then afterwards deal with all these people like, how dare you go into another place's sovereign territory? And it's like, look, like it rescued like 200 of their citizens. I don't know. That's what anyhow, I don't want to get too heavy into it, but it's fascinating to go down that rabbit hole. Back in the 1980s, it was on my PBS station with Sam Waterston as Oppenheimer. Yeah. I will say the casting for Oppenheimer in this is insane. He looks, the dude, I always blank out on his name. Oh, Cillian Murphy. He looks, just kind of naturally looks a lot like Oppenheimer. Like they had really similar facial structures. Harry said he saw Fat Man and Little Boy years ago about the Manhattan Project. It was okay, but Oppenheimer was far better and more accurate. Gaz was saying, I don't want to get heavy, says the guy who brings up the Israel-Palestine conflict. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but I will say, like, just looking into the history of Israel and like the different wars that have existed, how Palestine kind of came to be and stuff like that. You know, it's not like this clean cut, like, you know, these people were wrong and these people were right. There's a lot of like wrongs to go around, but it's interesting to like check out the history, and if anything, be at least pretty impressed with like, um you know, that I mean, is Israel on like a military operation standpoint is pretty amazing, like some of the stuff they've pulled off. Whether you agree with it or not, they're very effective. I don't know what got me going down that rabbit hole. I think it was something to do with, I have a friend here because I live in, you know, Antelope Valley, and there's a lot of like contractors and airplanes and stuff like that in this area. And I know people who work on like, you know, some pretty high level aircraft, you know. And I think I had hung out with that guy, and he was talking about some Air Force stuff or airplanes or something like that. And so that got me looking up like interesting dogfights throughout history. And I guess that got, quite often if you look into that, you're going to get a lot of stuff from the Israeli army because they have one of the best like air forces, and they've pulled off like some pretty crazy operations. So that got me in like this long rabbit hole. But yes, Gaz, I do have this weird personality of I like talking about all the things we're not supposed to talk about. it's it's a problem. It's a problem. All right. So we have I'm going to save this. It is so hot. I need to get a refill of water. So I'm going to play another trailer. Let's stay on the Luhan train and play the original Wordzoid ad.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm going to have to go with Karen Carpenter. Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon? Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won.
Trish, you've won a copy of 2 stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish.
I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
All right. I believe Christopher's heading out. He said, I'll check back in later, Kremlinator. Page is looking great. Have a good stream. Thanks. All right. So we're going to do more of this panel. Actually, I should do the figures first. Usually I start with the figures and then I'll kind of make the background like work around them. So I have 2 books that I have to write a script for, adapting a screenplay. And I can't get to those until I get a page done. This has been like my challenge the last, few months or weeks. I guess the last month mostly is like juggling the job search with the current obligation I have with my publisher, with this new pitch that might potentially be the job lead. So it's like this weird kind of a lot of trying to prioritize the key tasks that have the best optimal output while also fulfilling all my obligations. It's been a very challenging few weeks, let's put it that way. I think we always call it like plate spinning. Like we've had this as a topic on multiple artcasters, as well as back in the day with Big Illustration Party Time. So I think think I like this, how it's coming out. I think we might be overdue for like a spicy stream pretty soon, though. I just have to find something I feel up to watching and commenting on. I think till then we're just gonna do some chill art streams. I really kind of want to see that. Like now my curiosity is peaked. Oh, I forgot to do the lace. You have to do the lace patterns here. Doing these kind of lace patterns on her dress. And I think we went to Little Tokyo a few days ago. That was a blast. That area is really rad in Los Angeles. The one thing that bummed me out is there's this really famous guy who usually and he's got like a really interesting biography, but he's like been a performer, like kind of like a street performer in Little Tokyo for like decades, and he was paralyzed a couple years back, like, you know, I think before I ever really had been to Little Tokyo. But he figured out a way to still do music, so he's always doing these like rad you know, like covers on this like weird keyboard. It's like an old school keyboard that has like a drum machine and stuff like that, and he'll do covers of like pop songs and stuff, and they're amazing. Like I love it. I did a video a long time ago, a vlog of my family going to Little Tokyo, and filmed the guy actually because he's just rad. But he wasn't there. It kind of bummed me out. That's one of my favorite things about Little Tokyo is seeing that dude, giving him a tip, you know. Nice. Gaz said they're gonna have a pop-up show for the new Godzilla movie there this month. I think I need to get over there. I think for a toy collector, that area is rad because there's a lot of stores that have toys and stuff like that, especially like anime and manga, kaiju, like all that stuff. But it's also just great if you like Japanese food. It's great. Like there's a lot of good food places there. There's also a really good coffee place there. There's a Japanese bookstore that's great. I absolutely love it. Gaz said I was there like 2 years ago, only one time, but I agree. Nice. Yeah, it's a fun little area and like a lot of really good food. And Ben was excited. He got a katana, so not a real one, a wood one, but he was really stoked. He's been walking around the house with a katana, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong. I try really hard to do the pronunciations right, much to my wife's chagrin because I fail at it all the time. Let's see here. But it was pretty fun. It was kind of neat. It's like at Ben's age, one of his highlights of the trip was riding a glass elevator. That to him was like one of his favorite things. And then he's been really into like the soundtrack of Geometry Dash, which is like a game that has like a bunch of techno and stuff. And so he'll have us put that on in the car. And then while we're driving, he'll be like, doesn't this sound like the area we're driving through? Doesn't this sound like things look? It's kind of neat. It's like he's kind of connecting to music and starting to see that it can have this kind of impact on you, you know? Yeah, so that was a fun day. We ended up doing a little trip because we had to pick up my wife's sister from work because she got off early, and we were like, we'll just go to Little Tokyo, and that was nice. It's a nice little nice to have some fun. I had to hold back though. They had like a couple books I wanted to get. One of them was like The Art of Cuphead, which I think would be a really cool book to own. I love the animation and art in those, you know. So Benji is 10. Well, almost. It's a fun age. He was really excited because he got to get like a Minecraft book. It was like a um, encyclopedia of Minecraft kind of blocks. It's pretty cool. We have all of this kind of working out. Yeah, Gaz was saying fun. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I love the age he's at because he's very creative. He's really into, like, there's a lot of these games now where you can, like, there's one called Block Souls. There's a couple like that where you can take like they have assets and stuff and you can like build your own video game levels, and he's been really into that lately. And it's pretty cool. It'll make these like video game levels where, like, much like an old NES, you know, like you walk up to a character and press the button A, and then it's got like dialogue that he wrote. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. But the one thing that's kind of a bummer is there's this really beautiful Japanese garden, like a community garden that's in Little Tokyo, and you can kind of get there by going through, like, there's like this main like almost like apartment complex slash community center. And if you go up usually into the community center, you can ask security and they'll put you on a list, and then you're able to go into this like amazing like Japanese community garden. So we did the trek to get there, and we got there, and it turns out it's been closed for like 5 years because of COVID. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Yeah. Because it's a really pretty garden, you know? Almost as nice as the Japanese garden at Cal State Long Beach, but not quite. There's not really a lot of gardens out there that are that nice. Yeah, Gaz was saying still. Yep, it was still closed. Yeah, you'd think they would like reopen it to the public, you know, now, but okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of the we're gonna go ahead and add that stuff here. Yeah, Gaz was saying that sounds like more than COVID then. I'm sure there was something other than it. What I'm guessing is they probably closed it for COVID, and because of that, maybe they haven't allocated the resources to have staff or anything for it. That's what I would guess. I'm guessing they probably lost some sort of like resource or something that allowed that to be open. I gotta say though, it took a lot of self control there because like the food is so good, everything's so good. It's hard not to just blow a bunch of money. Um, and again, being in like a transitionary period, money wise and career wise, it's this is not the time to spend a bunch of money. But it was so tempting. Let's see here. All right, so we have Elizabeth done. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get through this panel. Now we have Bosco. Senor Bosco. It's a little bit of a challenge here. I think now we want kind of the light to be almost like pouring around his front a little bit. So he's almost backlit. We're almost at the 2-hour mark on the stream. Hopefully you guys are making good progress on your own personal work. I was thinking about this too. So this is in regards to the Crybully conversation at the beginning. So like, I'm curious what people are supposed to do in scenarios where, okay, real quick, what is the proper response to like, okay, you have like a scenario like, I don't know if you guys remember this. A few years back, there was a quote unquote Unite the Right rally, right? And it literally had a bunch of white supremacists and not like metaphorical white supremacists or anything like that. This had like actual Nazis, like people with like straight up swastika things, like holding them high up, saying a bunch of anti Semitic stuff in Charlottesville. And they were, protesting the taking down of like a Confederate statue and chanting things like the Jews will not replace us, which is extremely bad. Like they were just mask off, like straight up Nazis. And then the weird thing is, I've seen people on the right get all offended when you call those people at Charlottesville Nazis. And it's like, well, okay, so how are you supposed to do this? Like, is there a way to do that in a non-offensive way to people who are supporting some of these people? Because it's like, what are you supposed to do? Just ignore the literal swastika? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the thing that's weird. I feel like sometimes under this like guise of like being moderate, we're being asked to just kind of like turn a blind eye when there's a literal like Nazi, like, oh, you can't actually call it that. But I mean, but they have a swastika. They call themselves that. Yeah, but like, you can't do that because that's not like, we need to be like moderate about this. And I feel like that was the beginning, maybe a little earlier than that, of this kind of culture where it's like, if you're not willing to just kind of not call it for what it is, you're called moderate. But if you actually have the guts to just kind of call a spade, like, people are like, oh my gosh, how dare you, sir? How dare you? Yeah, Gaz was saying, I don't think you're supposed to care about the feeling of hate groups and those that coddle them. The paradox of being intolerant of intolerance. Yeah. But it's just weird that I've seen all these kind of, like, again, I feel like that's when a lot of the crybullying came out of the woodwork. Because they're like, well, every side has their thing. They all call each other and it's like, yeah, but I mean, this is a literal Nazi. Like, that's a little different. It's so weird. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it's under the guise of tolerance. You know, people want to get away with murder. I don't know. And I remember this a couple years ago too. Somebody was being really like anti, like they were being really racist and stuff, and like, and I just brought up, this was like on stream, and I brought up the fact that like I'm from a like mixed, like I'm in a mixed family, you know, so I take that a little personally. And they were like, whoa, how dare you take it personally? And it's like, well, because you're saying, like, this is a couple years back, in chat was saying that people shouldn't mix. And I was like, okay, well, I can't not take that personally. How, like, what world do we live in where you're supposed to just like just be like, well, you've got your opinion and I've got mine about that. And it's like, no, no. I'm not going to be tolerant of that hateful view that like insults the very family that I have. Why would I be? Like, that's ridiculous. Oh. But again, it's like if you respond, then it's like, oh wow, you're out of line. You're such a bully. And you're like, but it's, you're you know what I mean? When did this happen? Okay. Just rambling. But I'm just saying it's interesting. All right. What do we got here, guys? We're doing the rest of this this jacket. We're getting closer to the 2-hour mark, which is pretty exciting. I've been thinking a lot about scripts for graphic novels because I'm having to adapt for one, and so when I'm scripting my own, it's like kind of a different deal than if I'm like going to be pitching to publishers. And I mean, the reality is there's no real standard for scripting for graphic novels, but it's definitely different than a screenplay. Like, I feel like a film screenplay has too much allotted for sound. Nice. Gaz says, keep up the good work, Josh. Nice, Gaz. Enjoy your day. Oh, let's see here. So it's been interesting kind of trying to find a balance of the script. And I think it was Mark Wade or something. I saw like a couple templates online, and Mark Wade had a really good one for like a script format. So I'm kind of going with that. And it's very similar to a script, except it has more kind of breakdowns by panel, and then call outs for things like special effects and stuff like that, for like speech bubbles, and call outs for captions and things like that. So when I'm able to share, like if I'm able, at some point I'll try to share, if we end up getting a deal for this thing, maybe I can share some segments of that and show you guys like the kind of subtle differences between how you'd want to script a graphic novel versus a screenplay for pitches for publication. But needless to say, it's been fun to kind of be writing a little bit, even though it's like mostly premised on the writer's stuff and their original script. There are things that have to be adjusted for comics, a couple things that need to be changed a little bit. And it's been fun to kind of think in that analytical way and also start thinking from the viewpoint of sequentially breaking it down. So like, you know, there are things that written make a lot of sense, and it's somewhat similar to like storyboarding, or at least coming up with the descriptions of what you want storyboarded, versus just kind of writing a narrative, because you suddenly have to start thinking, well, how does this actually happen? This is the challenge that happens to most sequential artists. When you start working sequentially, it's a little different than just illustrating, because suddenly things that seem real simple in text become real complicated, because you're like, okay, I have this really complex series of actions that take 5 seconds. How do I show this in panels? Or how do I simplify this so that it reads the same intent but taking up less panels and less space? We're getting closer to finishing this panel. My Photoshop seems to be frozen a little bit. I think maybe that's one of the things with the whole thing that's interesting that I was talking about at the beginning of this stream, is I think sometimes people forget that, you know, people they're dealing with online are human beings with opinions and thoughts of their own. And human beings, if you fire shots at them, tend to want to respond. It's a pretty human response. Sometimes humans want a human, you know? All right, so we got our oh my gosh. So we have our suitcase here. Okay. And I think we just have to get these birds and then the outer laying areas. And we're one step closer to finish with what we need to accomplish for this stream. The one thing that I've noticed is really laggy about the newer version of Photoshop is you used to be able to hit just B and it would take you to brush tool. And now if I hit B or like any of the shortcuts, for some reason there's like a lag. Like it'll switch to the brush tool, but then back. And I'm not entirely sure why that seems to be happening with Creative Cloud. I'm curious if that might only be kind of when I'm streaming, because I've noticed when I'm not streaming, it doesn't have that issue. So that might just be like a video card thing or something like that. So we have this this room with like cages and doves. I didn't want to fill it with too much detail because I kind of wanted to let the previous page with the full orchestra and stuff like that kind of sing. I don't want to have every single page be like a crazy detailed splash page. And I think what we'll do here is, again, like a little bit of shadow here. Just kind of establishing our shadows. And we'll go ahead and make this, go ahead and do the whole floor. So now we're kind of working through this. So, all right, so we're going to get through. We're almost through this this panel. Very excited about it. All right, so we have all of these things going. And we're going to just go ahead and turn the opacity back up. And we'll see what we can do here. Definitely want to make sure I'm not covering up this chair that he's sitting on. And we're not aiming for like ultimate perfection here, but we're, you know, getting through it. Okay. We just have one thing left to go. And that's going to be the shadows on the wall. They're kind of going from like light to darker here. Here we go. And we're going to go to erase. And we should have our area that's going to be here as well. So as I'm going, what are some other things I've been thinking about? I have been thinking lately about what do you think defines consciousness? An interesting thing, and I don't know if we have any resolute conclusions on what exactly consciousness even is. And that to me has been really interesting. Just thinking about how do you define consciousness and what do you think it is? I don't know if I have a resolute answer to that. Seems like it's like something around the awareness of being a thing or being a being. It's like the state of being or something to that extent. But at what point does it derive? I don't know. It's an interesting one. I don't know why that's been a curiosity of mine lately. All right, so we have Thomas was saying, aware that you can be hurt and can hurt others is consciousness. Or is that a conscience? That seems like a conscience. But I feel like consciousness, does that only have to do with pain? Awareness of pain? I mean, I do think pain might come into it because if someone's unconscious, can't feel anything. So, but is consciousness only feeling? I don't know. Because let's say I'm totally numb. Like somebody shoots me with like that numbing stuff, like Novocaine or something, right? It's like I can't feel my mouth while a dentist is like drilling away at it or something. But I'm still conscious, like I'm still aware of what's happening. I just can't feel pain in that scenario. Does that make me unconscious at the time? Yeah, Thomas was saying it's a start and the first thing that came to mind. Yeah, I don't think it's off, Thomas. I just like, it's an interesting question because I don't know. It's kind of, I think it ends up in that kind of scenario of like the what is art kind of question where like you kind of start digging into it and realize how slippery all our definitions are, you know? That's why it's interesting to me because I don't even know if I think we all kind of know inherently what it is, but it's just like putting into words what it is. It's like one of those things that I think it just is, and we kind of all know what it is. But yeah, Thomas was saying something about being aware of the future. Yeah, I could see that. But it's been interesting, and me thinking about it has made me question some things. Not in a bad way. Just like so what happens like yeah, anyhow. It's a whole thing, you know? Like is consciousness only in the brain is a question, you know, or is there something beyond it, you know? Like I would posit, you know, as a believer, I think there's probably a soul. Well, not just probably, I think there is a soul. But I think the soul has something to do with conscious experience, you know? But then that leads to a bunch of questions too. Like, if I was knocked unconscious, does that mean I have no soul at that moment? If I'm sleeping, does my soul just disappear? Or is the soul something beyond like our conscious experience? Thomas was saying something to do with our own mortality too. Yeah, it's a illusory one, you know. Might be a pointless thing to think about, you know. But it's been interesting. So that's another thing I've been thinking about while working on art. Trying to think, like, how do I define consciousness? Can I define it? If I can't, is that a problem? Should I maybe learn how to define it? Should I think about defining it, you know? Because it seems like an important thing. Seems like something we value quite a lot. Okay, there's a couple things I don't like here. I don't like how this transition's kind of bubbling out, so I want to try to fix this a little bit. Because it's kind of sloppily erased in that area. I'd like to kind of address that and fix it a little bit, if I can. Just do it a little more cleanly here. It doesn't look quite as digital. There we go. And then there was one other spot. Yeah, I don't like how, I don't mind up here. Like, that's pretty fixable. In fact, I can probably just put a little thing here. This might be fixable too. I don't want it to look like it's kind of haloing around the bird. There we go. All fixed up. There's kind of a weird line there now. Okay. We have finished panel 4 shading. So now I'm going to merge all this shading. And we're going to play another video, and then we'll get back to the stream. If you guys have a clear-cut definition of consciousness, let me know in the chat. I'm going to get some water, and we're going to put on a trailer. So here is the trailer for Jacob's apartment. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we these things we've seen and walk around breathing I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. All right, welcome back. We're working on page 311, and which is a nice Pantone color too. 311 is like a nice kind of baby blue. But anyhow, so we're going to be working on page 311 and seeing how far we can get on the shading. It's going to be a chill stream today. And yeah. So when I was in junior high, I was really obsessed with Piers Anthony. I think I've mentioned that. And so thought it'd be fun. We just read through The Hobbit, my kid and I, and so we've been reading through like the Xanth trilogy and reading A Spell for Chameleon. And other than there's a couple like kind of saucy points that I have to kind of edit out when I'm reading it to my kid. Nothing like too shocking or anything, but just a little bit. You know, it's more for like junior high age range, I think. But I have to admit, I actually have been enjoying it. I think the series has been kind of critiqued for being a little misogynistic, and it is a little bit. But it's a fun world, and he's an interesting writer, and it's full of a lot of like kind of silly puns, and it's been a blast kind of revisiting it. So we're kind of at this. There's like this whole plot where there's this character Bink. It's actually funny, but it's like you know that movie Encanto or whatever. It's like that. It's like that plot basically. It's like this character Bink. He's in a world of people who have magic. Was that Encanto, Mai, the one with the girl? Oh, she's listening to music on her headphones. She has no idea. Anyhow, it's so he lives in this world full of like magicians with it's like this world of Xanth that looks like a bit very similar to the map of it looks a lot like Florida. And so Xanth is like this world of magic that's kind of kept within this protective wall. In the real world, which they call Mundania, that doesn't have magic. And it turns out that, you know, in this world, you're supposed to show your magical abilities by age 21. And if you don't have magical abilities, you're cast out of the society and you're not allowed to live in Xanth anymore. You have to go back out into Mundania. And so this character, Bink, he's like this young man. He's dating this girl. They're waiting to get married till he finds his magical abilities. And it gets closer to his 21st birthday and no abilities have come. And he's teased by, you know, everybody in Xanth because they all have magic abilities. They use those magic abilities to like bully him. And he's unable to like he just has no magical abilities. He's a like good kid, like very strong, has a lot of non-magical abilities. But he's been cursed. So he basically has to go travel to see this magician Humphrey in the area, who has the gift, like, because everybody in Xanth has like one magic gift. He has the gift to basically be able to read and tell what people's magic abilities are. And not just tell what people's magic abilities are. He has a conjuring ability. So he can basically answer, like, his magic ability is being able to answer questions. So Bink goes on this long quest to go to like the, you know, most dangerous area of Xanth to meet the magician Humphrey, so that hopefully Humphrey can tell him what his magic ability is if he has one. So he goes on this long quest. He meets all these characters along this on the quest. You know, he faces all these hostile plants and landscapes because Xanth is full of like, you know, tangle trees that'll literally like try to strangle you, and all these different hostile, you know, plants and stuff, and hostile environments that are full of magic that's trying to kill you. There's like a sorceress that tries to lure him into getting married to her so that she has like a mundane partner who she can exploit and take over Xanth with. And he escapes that sorceress. He gets in a fight with a centaur, and the centaur's girlfriend ends up kind of coming and backing him up and then giving him a ride to the like further out towards Humphreys. Anyhow, there's all this stuff. So finally they get to Humphrey's castle, and Humphrey finds out, like through an incantation or whatever, that he is indeed, that Bink is indeed very magical, but there's something that happened to suppress his ability. And Bink, the most powerful magician after all, pectoral muscles. So anyhow, he finally gets to like this magician and goes through all these traps in the magician's castle because he has all these traps. He forces people to work a year of service for his services. So like he'll answer any question, but you have to work for him for a year in return. So Bink gets there, he overcomes all the obstacles of the castle, that kind of stuff. Finally gets to Magician Humphrey. Magician Humphrey does his conjuring, and it turns out Bink indeed is magical, but Humphrey can't tell him what his magical ability is because it's blocked. And so he doesn't make him do the year of service, but he kind of sends Bink back on his way.
There's this villain named Crymble that's trying to suck his soul.
And that's when the Kremlin comes in. No, I'm just kidding. So anyhow, so then Bink gets back. He gets, he gets back. He has a note from Magician Humphrey. He's back in his village. The king, oversees these things where it's like a trial where you have to prove your magic ability before you're kind of ousted from Xanth. He brings the king like this magic healing water that he got on his journey, as well as the note from Humphrey that proves that he's magical, but he just can't express his magic because something is suppressing his magic. And the king, so he gets his trial. He's got this note. The king reads the note, gets pissed off, says Magician Humphrey doesn't know anything. He's not king. Rips up the note. Bink tries to give him the magic stuff because the king's kind of old and senile at this point. And the king basically takes it as an insult, the magic water that could heal him from senility. And is basically like, I'm not senile, and like dumps the water. And then Bink is unable to perform his magic. The king won't take the note from Humphrey, and so he gets excommunicated and kicked out of Xanth. Oh, and by the way, this whole plot, you're hearing about this evil magician Trent, who's like a villain, who, was turning people. His ability was to turn, his magic ability was to turn people into anything. Basically, like he could take like a person and turn them into another organic object. Thomas said, I read the first books in high school and college. Yeah, I read them, a bunch of them in junior high and high school. And I had forgotten a lot of this stuff. So anyhow, so like he gets kicked out of Xanth. He gets put past the barrier. That's like the shield that was made by, the king to basically protect Xanth from Mundania and prevent people from Mundania traveling into this magical world. And then Bink, once he's outcasts, he meets head on with the evil magician Trent. And he finds out from Trent is basically saying he's not so evil. And he's trying to get Bink to help him because Trent has a whole army of Mundania people. And he wants to invade Mundania, take the throne, and kind of restore his citizenship in Xanth. He wants to take over Xanth. And so Bink, being loyal to where he grew up, refuses. He meets this girl, and she's also cast out of Xanth, and it sounds like from her own volition. And both of them conspire, escape the magician Trent, end up like sneaking on a ship to try to prevent Trent from catapulting this chemical into the shield that'll allow them to go back into Xanth. They take the ship. They end up stranded in the ocean. Trent and them have a bit of a scuffle in the sea. All of them get sucked down a whirlpool. They have this magical stuff that's going to break the barrier. And through happen circumstance, all three of them get transported back into Xanth on like an abandoned island. But they're back in the world of magic, and they are in this hostile territory where all of them could die, and they kind of make a pact with Trent to team up temporarily since they're all sort of in trouble for being back in Xanth, but they didn't mean to be back in Xanth. And so now they're traveling with the supposedly evil magician, and there's indications that he may not be so evil. And that's kind of where we're at in the plot. And I had forgotten how fun it is. It's a really fun book. Yeah. Well, also definitely catering to, junior high boys. But it's a fun series so far. We've been really enjoying it. So, and it's been so long since I read it, I literally can't even remember what happens next. So it's kind of fun. It's like rediscovering something that I used to enjoy as a kid. And my son kind of rediscovering it with me. Thomas was saying you could say the books are punny. They're very punny. They're like, yeah. So anyhow, here we go. We have a lot of our hair kind of going this way and that. And we're gonna basically do this. But yeah, it's been a really fun read. I had forgotten he's pretty good at writing. He writes very I do understand the criticisms of him, like from a kind of feminist perspective, because he does write like very flat female characters. Like they don't have a lot of depth. They're usually defined by the men around them in the plot. But I mean it's fun fantasy. Fun high fantasy. Kind of reminds me of the days of when I was younger, D&D and fantasy novels, and reminds me of the fun escapism from those books too, because those books are very fun escapist fiction. Like you can just kind of read them and enjoy them. And as much as I don't tend to make escapist fiction, doesn't mean I don't enjoy escapist fiction. Let's see here. It is like 10 billion degrees with our AC full blast. I wonder how hot it is outside today. I don't even know if I want to know. Did we do the lace? We did the lace. Okay, cool. Oh, we didn't. We did it. Okay, we did it on both sleeves. Thomas was saying, I think he gets better with females as the series goes on. I think so too, from what I recall. And I also think it just kind of, it's high fantasy. So there's a lot of like, the live fantasy stuff, but I've been enjoying it. And it's kind of fun because it's something I've been wanting to revisit. I think Kevin Cross and I were talking about this a couple years back. Thomas was saying, if I remember correctly, he started out writing like more hardcore science fiction. Yeah, for sure. I like his Xanth stuff though a lot. I think it's great. Um, yeah, I think you're right, Thomas. I think he did write like more kind of serious like sci-fi. I think he continued to write quite a lot of stuff too. But when I was a kid, like the only thing I really read of his was all the Xanth stuff. And I read like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 Xanth novels. I think there's like 40 of them in the series or something. That always kind of impresses me, like writers even this writer I'm collaborating with has written like 100 and something novels. And it's like, that's pretty amazing to me. The one thing that's tough about comics, I think, is like it's hard to write. It's hard to be as prolific when you write and draw comics. I know there are artists out there who are crazy prolific. Like Runciman's a good example. Like Christopher Runciman's done so many comics, since he started. It's kind of insane the output that guy has. My wife would be another really good example where she's done like illustrated a ton of books. She's very quick. But I mean, 170 or something. That's pretty. To write 170 novels is pretty cool. Thomas said, "I liked the Incantations of Immortality series by Anthony. Nice. I don't know if I ever read that one. I can't even remember which Xanth book it was, but my favorite of all the books was there's a character who ends up coming from Mundania to Xanth using a tapestry and has all these friends like that were in the tapestry, like there was a giant spider. Yeah, it's a really cool story. I can't remember which of the series that is, but that was my favorite. Thomas said, "Have you ever read the Discworld books from Terry Pratchett? A Little Touch of Xanth." Pratchett is a little touch of Python too. I feel like Terry Pratchett's writing is very good. One of my favorite Pratchett things was actually Good Omens with him and Gaiman. It was like such a power teaming up. Yeah, Thomas was saying that was Bink's grandson, I think. I think so, yeah. I just can't remember which book. I think that might have been Nightmare, or I can't remember. It's one of the later ones. Not later, but like more like 6 or 7 books in, I think. But that was my favorite growing up. There was a whole era where, how I would find like fantasy series was there was a local used bookstore. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was great. It was like a little used bookstore, and it was mostly fantasy. Like they had 90% fantasy novels. So I would just peruse, and quite often I would pick books based on the illustrations. So I remember one of the series I got really into was Anne McCaffrey had this whole series, The Dragon Riders of Pern. I got really into those. And the only reason I picked them up was like these really rad paintings of dragons on the covers. Thomas said Pratchett passed way too soon. Yeah. Yeah. Very clever writer, though. I feel like Pratchett he was like, if you took like a fantasy, he's like the Douglas Adams of fantasy. I don't know if that makes sense. Very Douglas Adams-ish. I feel like Adams and Pratchett would be a really funny combo. That's it. Thomas said Castle Rugna book 3. So that's when I got really into, like, I was pretty into like Bink and stuff like that, but when it got into Castle Rugna, I was like, this is amazing. Okay, so we're gonna do. Nice. Thomas said, I loved Douglas Adams and the Dragon Riders of Pern. My favorite series in the Dragon Riders of Pern was these little short stories about the fire lizards. Because I always thought the fire lizard thing was like a cool, unique to Anne McCaffrey thing, where she had Dragon Song, Dragon Singer, and Dragon Drums. And I was obsessed with those books. I just thought they were like the best. And also the illustrations on the covers were really cool. I should look up who the illustrator was, but the way they drew fire lizards was really cool. All right, we're almost there, guys. And that series got so complicated. Like I tried to follow it, growing up, and I read probably like 15 or 20 of those books. I think there were like 15 or 20 that I had read. And I still didn't understand the entire storyline because there were like, I can't even remember how many books in the Pern series, but it's definitely one of those that's out there. But you got to give credit to an author who's like, they found a series that worked in a world they built that they loved, and they're able to just kind of spend, 50 years just carving away at that world, It's kind of neat. So we're doing. Yeah, Thomas said, I think I read all the Pern books. Nice. Yeah, I had a bunch of them. And again, because my big supply was that used bookstore, where you'd get like, I'd like bring in like a buck or two and get like 2 or 3 books. But because of that, like, I'd have to kind of hunt and just like fill in the gaps, kind of like, back in the day when you'd want to like fill your long boxes and get all the back issues, just kind of fill them in as you get them. Okay, we're almost at the 3-hour mark. Let's see how far we can get by hour 3. About halfway through shading panel 5. Thomas Adams said, I joined the science fiction book club in middle school. Nice. You guys had a science fiction book club? Or was it like a mailing list or something? So I think I went to like an unusually small junior high school because I think there were maybe 3 people I knew who read books when I was in junior high. There were a lot of people reading like R.L. Stine, but like nobody was reading like fantasy books. I used to get teased for like bringing fantasy books to school. Oh, nice. Thomas said books by mail. That's rad. That's cool. I would have been all about that. I don't even know that existed. Nice. Thomas said, I was a lucky worker at a local library. A worker at the local library liked sci-fi fantasy. Yeah, libraries were great too, for sure. Thomas said, I'm several years older than you. Yeah. I don't know, Thomas. I don't know how much of a difference in age there is. It's weird. Like, to me, it's kind of weird. I don't know if you've noticed this, Thomas, but I feel like after 40, it all just kind of starts blending. Nobody seems that old to me anymore. Like, in my 30s, I could be like, oh, that person seems much older. But like once I got past 40, and now that I'm getting towards mid, it just all seems the same. Oh, okay, got it. So Thomas, we got a slight difference there. So we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. Where are we at for time? Okay, we got 10 minutes left till our next little break. Yeah, I think there was something really appealing about, these high fantasy worlds. I do think actually working on a high fantasy comic at some point would be really fun. It's just there's so many out there, and I feel like if I were gonna do it, I'd want it to have like an angle to it. Because I feel like if you're gonna do it, you want to at least compete with a lot of the good high fantasy out there, like not just in comics but in books. But it might be fun to play at high fantasy and see if you could build your own kind of world and stuff like that. Weirdly enough, one of my favorite cartoons that Ben got really into, and my wife and I love, is Hilda. That was based on a graphic novel series, and strangely, it's kind of high fantasy. But like, just it's a great series for kids. It's like an all ages. But the thing I like about Hilda is it's kind of its own universe. Like, it's creating its own kind of mythology and stuff, and kind of slice of life, but it's kind of not. It's a really neat kind of, it's a unique voice, I think, in that genre. So I feel like if I were going to do it, I'd want to do something kind of similar to Hilda, in the way that it's kind of approaching it from your own world, and a lot of the mythology's new. A lot of the cities and things that are mentioned in it are kind of its own physics and its own world. I think that's the way to do it. Either that, or it would be fun to do just something straight up, ridiculous. Speaking of high fantasy, Thomas, since you're in the chat, have you seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie? I keep hearing really good things about it, and I have not seen it yet. But I heard from a lot of people it's really rad. I'd be kind of curious. I just heard it was super fun. Not like a deep movie, but like just fun. High adventure. Okay. We're getting there, guys. We are getting there on this long trek and journey of what is called comics. Yeah, Thomas was saying my niece or nephew watched Hilda for a while. It was very strange, but still compelling. Yeah, that's the thing I liked about it. It's not. It's a really and what's neat is the comic series is almost like that. It's so faithful to the comics. Graphic novels have that exact vibe to them. It's an interesting world building thing. Yeah, Thomas was saying, "Oh no, I've not seen the new D&D movie with little ones about not much time TV." Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where, we don't see a lot of movies, especially movies that aren't for kids. Okay, let's see here. We're getting there, guys. Have to kind of finish shading this box. I don't know why it keeps every time. Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know if that's a glitch because of OBS or something. Yeah, I hit B and it'll kind of alternate between giving me the brush tool and like going back to like the eraser tool. And it's like, why? If I hit E, it'll go to eraser, but very glitchy. Used to not be glitchy, so I wonder if that's OBS. Yeah, Thomas was saying they control the TV. Oh, 100%. Dude, my kid controls the radio too when we're driving. Like, we're going to listen to his music. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. So we're going to do let's finish up this jacket and then we'll take another real quick break. And then we will continue streaming until we have shaded this entire page. Because that's how this stuff gets done. Yeah, so just to let you guys know, that's why I haven't been streaming in a little bit, is I've just been doing revisions on that script. And then I got to the point where I could take some time and work on the comic. So I'm working on the comic. And I will have to get back to that script again after I have this comic colored. So there'll be little gaps in time, especially while we're working on this pitch, where I am not streaming. But know that I am working on art. I am always working on the next thing. And if I'm not streaming, there's usually a decent reason for it. It's probably just work that I can't stream. In this case, because we don't have a deal for it yet. So we kind of want to keep it on the DL so we have, more done of it. All right. So now I hit E and it goes back to the brush tool. It's so weird. It's just like a glitch. Okay. Good. Okay. So here we're going to do just a little bit more shading on the jacket here. And here we'll do just kind of gradually getting a little darker. So we've gotten completely dark. And we'll have it kind of fade in. And this will get a little darker. And I think we're actually good for the shading on the guy. So now let's save and let's play another trailer. We're at the 3-hour mark, ladies and gentlemen. Just for the heck of it, I've already played this twice, but I'm going to play it again just because it's new and it makes me excited. If you haven't seen it yet, this is Jim Luhan's new trailer. That it's an original animation that he sent me last night to play on breaks, and it just kind of made my day. So here it is.
We know that Georgia can't say the craziest thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading 2 stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kemble. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism, and all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
All right, it still hasn't gotten old. I'm really pleased with that. Okay, so what we're going to do is finish up the shading on these pages, and then we'll call it for the stream. I hope you guys are doing good. So we have our thing here. If I was to do another spicy stream, does anyone have any suggestions for what I should do commentary on? Anything interesting you've seen recently? Anything philosophically interesting? I have a couple ideas, but I'm open to suggestions on that too. Because I do think we're overdue a spicy stream. Although we just had a spicy stream recently, so I feel like the balance needs to be like, some chill art streams, then some spicy streams. Let's see here. And we've got our thing here. What do we got? Okay, we're going to go ahead and add some shadow. And we're going to add some background shadows too. Just adding a little bit of mood to the background. Oh, computer's lagging a little bit. Okay. It just kind of lagged out a second ago, so I have to undo a couple of the brush moves. There we go. Let's see what we got. Okay. So we're going to turn the visibility down a little bit. We're going to get through this. So one of the hardest things I think as a creative right now is like just trying to kind of juggle multiple projects but not get lost in the sauce. Meaning like when you have like a million things you want to do and you have like a window of time to do it, you have to kind of for me like it's a challenge to kind of not just follow whatever my intuition says and just kind of go from project A to project B to just kind of bounce around to like different projects that sound really fun. Um, and instead kind of prioritize the things that are actual priorities, like this book, or in this case, like looking at the cost benefit analysis of working on this pitch. I think it's worth it. So it's like taking a very calculated risk in that sense. But like being able to balance my time to that and stay true to it, even in the midst of kind of uncertain stuff, it's like that's been a real challenge the past few weeks, and I feel like I've been doing a pretty decent job at it, but it has not been easy, and a lot of it's really required me making a lot of lists and just kind of taking things like a step at a time on the lists, because it is really easy to kind of get overwhelmed or have the problem of too many possibilities come up, which I think stifles a lot of artists. I think a lot of the time, when it comes to your own creative output, it's just like, a lot of us want to do a lot of things. Like maybe we want to write a book, maybe we want to draw a book, maybe we want to make a kid's book, maybe we want to, and the list keeps going. And it's so easy to just end up doing like, okay, I'll do one page of a comic, and then I'm going to work on a novel, and then I'm going to work on this, and then and like get a bunch of half work done on a bunch of things, and not have any final thing to show, because I've been like bouncing around to like a million different things. Like today I just feel like doodling. Today, it's an interesting thing to like fight that urge. And yet it's so important right now for me to like stay focused on, first off, like my contractual obligations that already exist. And then second off on, that fine balance between things that are going to solve, hopefully the financial scenario soon. And also things that bode better for like long-term financial scenarios. And so that's just been like this weird kind of juggling act of like spinning plates and kind of multitasking and stuff that is like a known weakness of mine. And so that's part of why I really rely heavily on kind of writing down lists of things that I need to get done, and then prioritizing the things that are most urgent, like kind of triaging. But it's a weird thing to like have to do. And I envy any artists who just don't have that struggle of like picking what to do, or, needing to kind of really map out or prioritize like projects so that they get done. Because to me, if I don't do that, it's just like nothing gets done. And then I end up with a bunch of half starts and nothing finished. So anyhow, it's been interesting kind of keeping morale high, and yet also, trying to, again, do like a balance of like job applications if there's things that have opened up that I think would be good. Trying to maintain morale when those applications may or may not, bode what I'd like them to, keeping freelance queries out there, keeping, on track with my book that's due for my publisher. And just also trying to take those occasional risks that you need to kind of have longer term gains and maybe grow in an area you want to. So it's been an interesting few weeks. But again, like the only way I'm able to kind of balance it without kind of feeling like I'm drowning is through just a lot of lists and things like that. So we have our our panel done. And I'm going to go ahead and put the opacity all the way up. I'm going to zoom out. Oh, if my computer doesn't freeze. Okay, let's zoom out. Okay, we finished a panel. I don't like that it's not, I want it to get a little darker toward this bottom area. Like kind of the mid area, I think needs to get. So I think I'll do another pass of a wash. It just kind of darkens it up as it gets down here. So that it kind of recedes more and then kind of comes out less dark. So just a subtle wash to kind of bring that more into the background. Yeah, I think that works a little better. Now just getting rid of cleaning up the excess. I think that'll kind of help it pop a little bit, as much as I hate that word. Just create a clearer foreground and background. There we go. And then I think we need to do the same with him. And that'll create like hopefully a little bit clearer of a definition between the foreground and the background figures. So they already have shading on them, but I think just a little bit more helps them kind of sit back. And I think I don't even mind the shading kind of covering that that bird cage. So I think we're going to keep that. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have the bird cage come out a little bit too. But the magician's backstage, he did a lot of tricks with birds as well as the cup and ball routine and stuff. So that's what we're kind of doing here. Cleaning that up a bit. And then we're going to have... yeah, I think we're good to go on the last panel now, which should take way less time. I like that much better. Let's see here. Yeah, I like this much better. I'm going to save, and then we're going to play one last trailer, and then we're going to finish up the page. So if you guys haven't yet, hit the like button. That would be greatly appreciated. That helps this channel get more views and kind of cheats the algorithm a little bit in our favor. So please hit that like button. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And here is the trailer. Let's play Philip Chandler's trailer that he submitted.
Hi, my name is Phil Chandler. I'm a freelance artist, illustrator, and cartoonist. Today, though, however, I want to tell you about a graphic novel I picked up recently called Jacob's Apartment. This book was both written and beautifully illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It is the story of a doomed romance that causes the main character to question his beliefs and his faith, while he's also going through other tragedies in his life. Every page has been illustrated by hand and digitally colored with painstaking detail. It is an emotional story that causes you to think and even question things in your own life. And while the story is a tragedy, it is one that I was completely entertained by and I highly recommend. You can currently find this on Amazon or even check in with your local bookstore and see if you can order it. And while you're at it, you can also check out my Instagram at Phil Chandler Arts and also my YouTube channel by the same name, Phil Chandler Arts. And go buy Jacob's Apartment.
All right, we're back. We're going over 3 hours. We're going to finish this up and then probably take a dinner break. But yeah, So here we go. We're working on page 82 of Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the graphic novel that we're working on for Turner Publishing. And let me see here. Just kind of, okay, we're doing that, and we should be good to kind of move forward. So let me flatten all these. There's a lot of layers now. We're going to merge them all. A lot of layers of this shading. And then from there, we're going to get into our last bit of shading on this page. And I'm actually excited about that because today, because I had a late night last night, I literally just woke up and started working on this. I'm working on comics and applications and stuff like that. So I'm actually excited because after this, that means I get to shower, which is cool, and work out, which is cool. So that's what I'm planning on doing once this is done. Just doing my workout and my shower. And then I'll probably be live streaming again later because I have to color this. And maybe we'll do some commentary or have somebody on that one. We'll see. But I might be in the mood for like a spicy thing. Or we might just kind of watch like a really interesting interview with a cartoonist or something like that. Who knows? Who knows what evil lurks in the mind of Crymble? Only Crymble knows. All right, so we're gonna continue this up and just go ahead and wrap up the thing here. So I kind of like doing the spicy streams. They're fun. The only draining part about them, again, is like people who can't handle opposing viewpoints. That gets a little old, you know, where it's like, dude, I'm just expressing my opinion here. That's it, you know? All right, so what do we have here? But yeah, so I got to kind of figure out what video I'll do commentary on if we do one. But I hope you guys are able to get some work done and stuff like that. I'm excited about the progress of this comic. We're getting closer and closer to page 100, which is not near where we need to be, but it's a lot further than it was. And I am hoping to kind of wrap this whole page today so that I can get back to script revisions. And then I'll be alternating. Like I'm going to do sections of scripts and then coming back to the pages, and then sections of script and then coming back to the pages. And just kind of trust that we'll get progress from that process. Let's see here. I was reading some interesting stuff where there's all these questions, like, and it's actually a really interesting kind of barometer or test. So, like, I'm curious about this for people who like lean right or whatever. So let's say hypothetically, like Trump gets indicted and charged, right? Or let's say he gets the presidency. And he has this trial with like he has 3 indictments, right? And you know, a lot of them are pretty substantiated with what seems like a lot of supporting evidence. So, how many people who support the right are okay with, if Trump became president again, him basically pardoning himself? Like, are they in favor of that? Like a president pardoning themselves for a crime? Um, Kind of bypassing the legal system just, because they got elected? Is that okay with most people who support him? I'm just kind of curious where they draw the line on like the democracy in general. Are they okay with Trump trying to overturn the election results when the courts didn't rule in his favor? Because I feel like there's like this chain of logic that baffles me a bit with that whole thing too, where it's like I'm curious about like the different barometers of yeses to those kind of questions. Like, if Trump sincerely felt that the election was rigged and stuff like that, and sought every legal mean to kind of find out whether it was, and every legal mean at his disposal refused to show what he was claiming or believing. What extent was it okay for him to just override the system? You know, and it, like, because I feel like a lot of these questions kind of get to like fundamental differences between authoritarian rule and democratic rule, and I can't help but think that um I think a lot of folks who support Trump might be okay with authoritarianism, like given the right context. Like meaning, well, if you're like running and you're a candidate that the person likes and that candidate feels like the system was rigged against them, is it okay for that candidate to, after seeking legal remedy and failing to get it because there's no evidence that's substantial enough to hold up in a court of law in pretty much any state, like at what point is it not acceptable to defy the rule of law in the country in order to advance or secure your hold on the office of the president, based on the justification that you're convinced that the whole thing was rigged despite all evidence that could at least appear in court? Like, at what point is it not okay for your guy or whatever to pursue power? Like, at what point is it crossing the line where it's like, okay, that's illegal, you know? Or does it matter as long as they get power? I'm kind of curious. Because I kind of feel like a lot of people just kind of disregard that. I think that's what's a little disturbing to me, is like the amount of yeses I think a lot of people would give to that, where it's like, do you think it's okay to have the Supreme Court overrule the will of the people? I think a lot of them would say, well, as long as it rules in Trump's favor, sure. Is it okay for a violent insurrection to try to overthrow the democracy so that the votes won't be counted? Well, as long as our guy gets in, that's fine. Was it okay for him to try to coerce, different states to, like, state leaders to lie so that you can win? Well, as long as it's our guy. Was it okay for him to pardon himself? Well, as long as it's our guy. I don't know. I'm just curious. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like if he does get reelected, which I don't think will happen, but I didn't think the first election would happen. So who knows? But I think you're going to see a lot of like pro-authoritarians like come out of the woodwork and start admitting that they're for just dictatorial rule, or waking up to it and being like, oh, wait a minute, we've enabled somebody to hold absolute power and retain it, like, breaking the rule of law because he's our guy. But I feel like it's kind of like the Joker thing in Batman, where there's what was it, like some people just want to watch the world burn. I think there's a bit of that. Okay. So we're going to do our lace effect here. I had forgotten to add that. It's just literally like a scribbly wiggles up here. Scribbly wiggles. It's also the name of a British comedian. Hello there. I'm Scribbly Wiggles. How do you do, old chap? Thomas was saying the problem with the left, they can't come to terms with that all this attention on Trump gives Trump more energy. Yeah, I mean, he's like a bulletproof. He wasn't kidding about that being able to shoot somebody on 6th Street thing, He really wasn't. But I guess the other conundrum is like, when it gets kind of cult-like and stuff, like, what could you tell somebody who supports L. Ron Hubbard, and I don't mean like enjoys his writing, has just like hook, line, and sinker started going to like Scientology centers and stuff, and they're drinking the Kool-Aid. What can you tell them about L. Ron Hubbard that's going to change their opinion, And then if you don't say anything about it, they just kind of continue to grow in the shadows and go unchallenged. And then more people like go, personality test. I should go check that out. So like that's the question. Like with a, I guess it's weird, but it's like with a cult, like what do? Do you not talk about it? Because not talking about it gives it power. But then if you talk about it, they can play the whole persecution angle where it's like, oh, we always get persecuted. That's why all these people are coming out against us, because persecution. I was like, okay, well, so you can't talk about it and you can't not talk about it. It's kind of a conundrum that I'm not really sure what the solution is there. I kind of feel like, to me, I feel like we have a responsibility to call a spade, so when you see something, you can't kind of, I don't know, I think there's an obligation to truth. Okay. I think sometimes maybe that even costs, like I'd imagine in the days of like witch trials and stuff, the person who like spoke up and was like, hey, this is kind of nonsense. There's no such thing as witches, and these people are innocent, I'm sure the crowds would be like, no, like, or that's your truth. We're just going to drown these people, like, I don't know. I feel like at some point you have to kind of speak up and be like, yeah, this is nonsense, even if it's not popular to say, it's much easier to play the spineless moderate, Thomas was saying you could say that the media put Trump on a witch trial, but that's the problem. They aren't putting him on a witch trial. He's being put on an actual trial because the guy was mishandling classified information and literally trying to rig an election. So that's not a witch trial. That's just a actual trial with evidence. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. Again, it's like one of those weird things. I agree with you though, Thomas. I've thought about this. Like if somehow everybody in the media could just agree to just not talk about Trump, like he would lose quite a lot of power. Thomas was saying during his term. Yeah, but it's kind of weird, you know, like even the Mueller report, you know, did not like clear Trump, you know. A lot of people think it did because they didn't read it, you know. It didn't clear Trump, you know. A lot of disturbing stuff came out in that thing. But Thomas is right. Like he was saying, he feeds the attention. Yeah, it's too bad we're kind of in a world where I feel like collectively, if everybody could just ignore him, you know, he'd lose his power. But he isn't wrong about that whole shooting somebody on Fifth Street thing or whatever, because it's like he's really like, if Trump is not good at anything, well, no, he's pretty good at like spin, and like he's pretty bulletproof as a candidate. I don't know what magic powers he has, you know, but like he does have an ability to kind of craft his own truth. Thomas said that's why I voted Gary Johnson. Nice. Well, that's the thing. Like, I know quite a lot of libertarians that are not big Trumpers, you know. I also know a lot of friends who lean right that just they couldn't join the cult, you know. I think arguably, I don't even, you know, I think Republicans in general that aren't pro Trumpers, some of them are reasonable and just like low taxes and, you know, philosophically like have a mild disagreement, you know, and it usually comes down to like one different philosophy. Sometimes it just comes down to like how much you trust people, you know, and like those disagreements can be really fun and interesting to have discussions over, and usually don't have to get like super personal or crazy, you know. But I feel like I don't even think Trump represents like Republicans anymore. I feel like the hardcore Trumpers are like a party of their own, you know. Whether Trump like splits with the Republican Party or not, I think they're going to follow Trump like wherever he goes, do whatever he says, you know. I think we're getting there, guys. And one of the reasons I bring up the cult thing though is like you can be friends with somebody who's in a cult, like, you know. Um but I don't know if it's like being a responsible friend if you think somebody's in a cult to like not like kind of warn them or tell them what's going on. Like, you know, maybe occasionally chip away and make attempts to kind of wake them up. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's actually caring about somebody, you know. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. All right, so we've got some some things going on here. Thomas said most people like Trump because he drives the elitist crazy. But the weird thing is, isn't Trump like an elitist? That's the thing that's bizarre. That always drives me nuts. That drives me crazy. The idea that Trump's like some guy speaking for like the common man. He's a multimillionaire. He's like one of the richest people on earth. Why would why would you feel like that's making elitists mad? He is an elitist. But yeah, I mean, like the weird thing is he's a New York elite. Like what like how much more elite can you get than like literally owning like buildings that have your name on the top of them? He is an elite, you know. He grew up being a multimillionaire. That's the saddest thing I think about Trump is like a lot of people who support Trump don't realize like Trump wouldn't even sit across a dinner table with half of these people. You know, you're talking about a man who like everything in his presence, he's like Midas. Like he literally wants everything in his presence to be coated with gold. He's talked derisively about poor people all the time, you know? And then like for some reason he'll be like, I'm like you guys, you know, I'm just like you. And they're like, yeah, we believe you. Even though like he's literally hanging out on Epstein's island. I mean, he is the rich elite. But whatever, you know, what do I know? I'm just an elite, not a poor multimillionaire New Yorker from a rich family that's pulled strings and had massive power behind the scenes in one of the biggest cities in the US for, you know, easily over 100 years as a family, you know, and basically like screwed over working class people, refusing to pay out, pay them for their work and labor, you know, been caught doing white collar crime and pyramid schemes that only hurt the poor, the very base that's like supporting, you know, I don't know. I mean, arguably, you know, Trump is from a more elite background than freaking Obama, you know? Like, Obama wasn't born into wealth, you know? Thomas said he doesn't project more hate to the American people. I don't know about that. I think all Trump does is project hate. He kind of builds power that way. That's why a lot of the kind of campaigns kind of, you know, focus not so much on any policy positions, but just owning the libs, like, and manufacturing anger and hatred towards groups of people, you know? But I mean, yeah, it'll shake the box if you literally put somebody in power that's willing to do anything to retain power and in all reality has like honest fascist leanings, you know, and not fascist in the racist sense. I mean fascist in the sense of like holding on to power, overthrowing the democratic process and basically retaining power, whether through cheating or whatever, just to basically create a system where you can, you know, not be charged. And a lot of that relies on like phony boogeymen, you know? So you say like Antifa or whatever it is that you're going to be pissed off at, and you just keep building that hate. And people are going to be like, well, I'll go for the fascists because they're not Antifa. And ironically, anybody who supports Trump and hears that what I just said will just ignore everything I just said and be like, you're calling Trump a racist. And I'm like, no, like, you guys realize fascism was in areas that weren't all white. Like, I mean, you know, there have been fascist parties all over the place. It's not just one dude. But the tactics that Trump is employing are very fascistic. Like, and then if I say that, you know, then like friends of mine who like Trump are like, oh, you're calling us fascist. No, I'm just saying Trump is kind of fascistic and you tend to support whatever he wants to do, even if that's to overthrow the democratic will of the people. Okay, so we're getting there, guys. It's okay for him to come after freedom of the press because the press is against him. It's okay for him to come after the democratic vote because the democracy is against him. It's okay for him to, you know, attack somebody he made a payout payment to because it was like a prostitute that he hired. That's okay. Why? Because it's against Trump. Well, what's it not okay for him to do? Right? It's okay for him to like try to swindle and get politicians to lie in order for him to retain power. It's okay for him to try to get his vice president to lie and pretend his position can do something he can't. It's okay for him to walk all over the rights of the Constitution. It's all okay as long as it's like, because they're all against him, right? That's how fascists do it, right? They create like everything's against him, you know. Democrats to have social media to quash conservatives. Well, I mean, that doesn't even work anymore. Doesn't Elon Musk own Twitter now? Also, I know this is weird, but like, isn't Zuckerberg not a Democrat? Like, that's the weird thing. Actually, no, I don't buy that. I mean, I get that, like, the public in general, but I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. I don't even think Zuckerberg is a Democrat. I gotta look that up. I don't even think he's a Democrat. I mean, I agree. I think cancel culture is stupid, you know, but I don't think it's just the right, the left that's canceling people. I mean, I'm too old to buy that. Like, come on, the whole satanic panic was not a left leaning thing. That was a very right leaning movement. And it's continuing to this day where, like, you know, they're literally bringing back the satanic panic to try to cancel people, cancel textbooks, cancel careers. I feel like everybody's for canceling unless it's not their side. To me, I think canceling is just stupid. You shouldn't cancel anyone. Thomas said it's just that the left's better at it. Well, I mean, you know, I've heard a theory on that I actually think is pretty relevant, which is like a lot of the right has spent a long time kind of crapping on art and artists and like making fun of people for like going into the arts and stuff like that, and kind of encouraging people to only go into trades. And then why would you be surprised that like most people who go into the arts tend to be left leaning and then make better movies and stuff because there's more of them and there's more people on the left doing the arts because the arts haven't been encouraged by the right enough. So it's one of those things where now, you know, the right has like these pseudo movies that kind of suck. And they're like, oh, this is our alternate dimension. Or like these pseudo comics that suck. And they're like, oh, we're going to recreate comics. And like they're all selling them on the basis of like, we're not them. Instead of just having good comics that, you know, just happen to present their viewpoint. And why why that is like I think the right needs to take a long hard look at how bad of a job they've done on encouraging the arts and start embracing the arts more and encouraging actually more conservatives to go to colleges and stuff. Because if you start getting all anti-elite and you don't send any conservatives to college institutions, you know, to get training, and then you're suddenly offended that like all the historians that usually requires college to learn how to do history, all the historians are now left leaning. Well, guess what? You just encouraged all your people to not go to colleges, not to become academics, not to actually study, not to go into science, not to go into all these things. And then, you know, because they're like these corrupt elite institutions, and you end up with like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, where it's like, oh my gosh, of course the institutions are going to be left leaning. You keep going against the what you need to do is insert some of your people into the institutions. Get your people to learn how to do history correctly. Get them to learn how to do science, like, you know, how to do the arts and stuff like that, and stop like belittling the sciences and the arts, and then maybe you'll have more of a say in the process, you know. But like, of course Hollywood's always going to be left leaning. If everyone who grows up on the right thinks that Hollywood's full of this horrible stuff, then who's going to work in Hollywood who's right leaning? So then none of them will get into movies, and then they'll never get good at making movies, and then they'll never get good at writing movies, and then you're going to end up with all these like left leaning movies. It's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now the right is like trying to fulfill culture, but they're not doing it right. Like they suck at it. And so like that's the thing. They need to get better at it. All right. There we go, guys. That's it for the stream. And now what we're going to do is we're going to call it. I'll be back. A lot of dog action going on. I'll be back and we'll be streaming a little bit later. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. If you haven't yet, hit that bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. I'll probably be back in about an hour to an hour and a half. I'm going to eat lunch and do all that kind of stuff. And then we'll come back and we'll color this page. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.